Boo.
Boo.
What's up, everybody? Happy Halloween.
Hello, dissidents.
Hello, dissidents, or as they say this time of year, trick or treat. And welcome to a special Halloween edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Timon the Meerkat, here with, what are you? Are you a vampire or a zombie?
I identify as both and neither. My pronouns are Zampire and Zampir.
So you're a non-binary undead.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I don't feel like I need to commit to either side of the vampire zombie binary. I feel that's socially
You're
constructed.
Right. You know what? Forgive me. I apologize for asking. I shouldn't have asked.
I'm glad that you want to inform yourself and you want to educate yourself.
Yeah,
that's all we ask. That is all those of us in the Zampire community ask, that you educate yourself.
You know, here in Africa,
and that you allow us to use the bathroom of our choice.
I live on
the coffins of our choice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is actually my Halloween costume for tomorrow. I'm going to be Timon the Meerkat from The Lion King. My boys are in Lion King mode. I'm sorry. Last year, I was Dr. Grant from Jurassic Park, and my boys were two little velociraptors. And it's funny because I snuck into the office here and changed costumes. They're about to go to bed now. And I felt like I shouldn't get in costume and then come into the office. I should, say goodnight to them and come into the office and change, because if they see me in costume, they're going to get really excited.
Yeah, they're going to want to go trick or treat.
Yeah. And the thing I didn't realize...
children are stupid.
Yeah, well, they don't know the date on the calendar. Yeah, right. I hope that I don't have to take a leak in this, because then I'll have to go back out and then they'll see me.
Yeah. No, I spent a few months with kids over last winter, and I came to the conclusion children are fundamentally stupid. Because those kids were smart as kids go, but kids are just stupid.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure.
People say, "Oh, kids are so smart; they're really smart," but that's like a smart chihuahua.
Well, their brains are not as developed.
That's it. Well,
that doesn't mean they're stupid. It just means that they're not as advanced as adults.
Yeah. Well,
that's not a very profound point. I must say,
they're smart like someone who just got smacked in the head with a shovel.
I mean, they're younger. Their brains are forming.
Very smart for someone who got hit in the head with a shovel.
Well, their brains are forming.
Exactly.
So they're not as
smart. Their brains are not. They don't have the brain capacity. So when you say, "Wow, that's a really smart kid," it's like saying that's a smart cat. Right?
But it's saying you're
grading it on. They're smart.
Kids can be smarter than other kids, just like adults can be smarter than other adults.
Look, man, my cat was so smart that every time we did this show, he tried to talk human to get my attention. He couldn't figure out what I was doing, so he figured maybe if he did it too, I'd pay attention to him. So he go, that's smart for a cat. That's still not smart, right?
I mean, it's smart for a cat. I mean, intelligence is all relative.
Right. Exactly.
I must say, this is one of your less profound insights.
People who cannot tell what date it is, they're stupid. Children are stupid. They're also short, in case you hadn't noticed. They're short. They're short and they're stupid.
Stupid little midgets. Right.
That's my take on children. That's probably why I don't have any around right now.
Well, let's see. What do we have on the agenda for this evening? It is Halloween night, so thank you very much, everybody, for... it's not Halloween night. Tomorrow is Halloween, but tonight is when most people are celebrating, because it's the weekend. It's the weekend. This is when all the libs, they all celebrate everything on the weekends, right? They work the 9-to-5 job, and it's Halloween weekend, so that's when we do everything, on the weekend. Working people, doesn't matter what fucking day of the week it is, right? You can be off on a Tuesday, Wednesday. You could be off on, I mean, you and I, we did tourism, so we would work, on the weekends all the time.
Sure.
When I used to manage tour companies,
I don't know what a weekend is, man.
Right, exactly. When I managed tour companies, Monday was my Saturday, because that was usually the day when nothing was going on. Oh, whew, thank God,
Right. This is the price you pay for your freedom.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's true.
You're never gonna have a weekend.
Well,
but you're also never going to be stuck in a fucking office.
Well, I maintain it's a better life for a number of reasons, okay? Because if you're not working on the weekends, you get to take advantage of all of the fun weekday stuff that's meant to draw in people who don't have time to do anything on weekdays. For example, lunch specials, right? You go get a plate of food at a restaurant for way cheaper than you would have to pay on the weekend when everybody's off, right? You get an $8
Yeah.
plate or whatever the fuck, right? Rice and beans,
Right.
chicken,
Yeah.
Thai food,
Yeah.
whatever. You got lunch specials, right?
Yeah, they have
People who
lunch
work office
specials,
jobs
sure.
don't take advantage of them that much because you don't have time, right? Happy hour. Boom. There you go. You get a full happy hour, right? You can open up a bar at 3:00 in the afternoon, half price drinks until 7. Boom. You know, it's a better life. It's more enjoyable. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. I
I mean,
can't
the
even-
weekend, going to eat on a weekend. I mean, when I lived in the city, you know, sometimes at night, because when all the tours were over, every once in a while, you know, we meet some friends, and going out to eat or drink on a weekend, it's a nightmare. Horrible.
Yeah,
Everything's crowded, loud. You got to wait for a table. Everything's expensive. It's a fortune. It's like, God, who wants this? Give me an empty bar at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm a happy man.
These are indeed poor life choices. This is what 28 years of smoking did to me.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly.
It all came upon me last night.
Yeah.
Keaton he's wearing a crown of sorts. He slaughtered a small furry animal. And he's
Yeah,
using
right.
it as
Exactly.
he's using
We
it
should
to
have changed our
demonstrate-
names. We
to
should have changed
demonstrate
our
his
street
virility.
names. Right. Exactly.
He hasn't been able to get an erection in 6 months. He was told if he slaughtered this animal and wore its skin, that his powers of fecundity would be restored.
We'll see if it works. We'll see. We've got about.
You'll have
this
to
is not
tell
a
me
very
tomorrow.
good test environment.
I'm glad I'm not there. Woo!
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, this is not a great test environment. I have to say. Maybe in an hour and a half or so, we'll give it a shot.
That's the theory.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. If Lula wins, it'll be easier. If Bolsonaro wins, that's gonna forget it. We're gonna have to put it off till tomorrow.
Mr. Winky is gonna be sad.
We have some topics that we want to get to this evening. It's going to be pretty funny to clip these videos and just put them up as political commentary dressed like this, but whatever. It's Halloween. Anybody who doesn't like it, they can fuck off, right? We have a few things we have to get to. We are going to count down later in the show our top 10 dissident horror films. We'll figure we'll have a little fun on Halloween. Before that, we have some Brazilian election results that we want to get to. We also have some footage of a Barack Obama rally that was crashed by some LaRouche protesters, our new friends of the show, the LaRoucheites.
The LaRoucheites.
Who knew we would find our home with the LaRouchers?
Ever since we did that segment, there's been a black van outside my house. I've caught somebody going through my garbage, but hey, they're just trying to get to know me.
I mean, yeah, but look, I mean, we're going to be known as the LaRouche podcast now. We're going to have to do like Donald Trump with the David Duke. I don't know anything about LaRouche. I never heard of LaRouche. I don't know.
LaRouche.
LaRouche, I don't know.
Stand down and stand by.
Yeah, right. Stand down and stand by. Exactly. That's going to be our relationship now to the LaRouche movement. Although I have to say, I'm far more impressed with the LaRouchers than I am with the progressives lately.
This just breaking. If Sean is reliable, and who in our chat is not a reliable broker?
Well, Sean is very reliable because Sean is a patron. He says Lula won. So we are going to get to this. Let me just put this up on the screen here. According to The Guardian, with 99.3% of the vote in, Lula Da Silva 50.9 to Bolsonaro 49.1. If there's less than 1% of the vote yet to come in, that would mean mathematically it looks as though Lula da Silva has won the presidency in Brazil. Now, let me see if that is actually being reported by the outlets, because here's what I'm worried about, folks. And we have to be careful what we say about this, because even mention of shit like this gets you in trouble with the YouTube robots. But it seems as though Bolsonaro has been making noises about how he is not going to concede the race if the results are close. However, I can report right now that CNN has called the race for Lula da Silva. Lula wins third term as president in fiercely contested runoff vote.
All right. So
Wow.
Glenn
Wow.
Greenwald knows his third world countries. He picked the right spot.
That is, that is a truly wonderful story. It really is. That is a wonderful, wonderful story. I did not expect having to be serious tonight dressed like this, but we will have to be serious for a moment.
And you're not really making it work either.
It's very difficult. it's very difficult given how we're dressed here, given the circumstances. And Sean, you are half Brazilian. Well, congratulations, my friend.
I have a Brazilian wax.
Yeah.
So my better half is Brazilian.
Your better half, right? Exactly. Look, that is an extraordinary thing. I hope, knock on wood, that the transition happens and that Bolsonaro doesn't try to steal it somehow. I don't know that Bolsonaro has conceded. We're going to be following this over the course of the next hour and a half or so. But that is just extraordinary news. I mean, that's great. I mean, look, we on the left in America are still fucked, right? We're still up a river, right? I mean, we're still screwed, and so we would like to think that we could elect a leader like Lula, who actually delivers results for people, with a proven track record of doing that. We would like to think we can do that. And it sucks that we can't, and there's a lot of suffering here at home because we can't. However, I just have to say, if you are actually on the left, and, we reject a lot of the excesses of woke discourse because we believe that the discourse undermines the goal, which is equality for everybody. And if you are really on the left, you must, by definition, believe that Brazilian lives are just as precious as our lives here. And so a win for the fourth largest democracy on earth of this nature is fantastic, and it's extraordinarily inspiring that this could happen. I have two white men whose names I want to rattle off here, which shows where we live and the way we look at the world, right? This is an admittedly privileged or insulated take on this, but the first name I want to bring up is the late, great Michael Brooks, who got to interview Lula shortly before he passed. He did a lot of wonderful journalism on this story. He made this story mainstream in the online left. If there is any justice in the universe at all, he is smiling somewhere right now that Lula has won. He played his own small part in making this happen. And I also want to mention, this is perhaps more relevant. It's less sentimental. It's less emotional, but it's more relevant. I also want to thank the grifter right-wing fascist Glenn Greenwald for helping to exonerate this far-left candidate who then went on to win the presidency in the world's fourth largest democracy. If I were a right-wing grifter, I don't think I'd have done that. But it's big on him because he's such a right-wing grifter. He's such a fascist.
But he goes on Fox, Keaton.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I mean, a guy like that who goes on Fox News, he's a fascist, he's a right-winger, he's a transphobe, he's this, he's that. It was his journalism that was so instrumental in freeing Lula in the first place and making this happen. Greenwald obviously lives in Rio himself.
While living in a country where a right-wing fanatic who makes Trump look stable could have had him whacked at any time or unjustly imprisoned. And he did it anyway. And he didn't even leave the country. He stayed there. I said this on the show before. I wouldn't have stayed in Brazil if I was going to drop that article and Bolsonaro was running the country. He did. Yep. And these maggots are going to come out and start denigrating him, calling him crazy. On what basis? You heard this from a lot of them. Again, it's just that tactic of throwing the ick on somebody. What do you mean he's crazy? On what grounds? On what grounds do you say that? And when you ask them that, they can't tell you. They can't tell you. I've asked these people, can you give me an example of him committing an act of dishonesty in his reporting? Can you find something to show me where his reporting is inaccurate or dishonest? No. They just, it becomes this echo chamber. Glenn Greenwald talks to Tucker Carlson. That's it. We had somebody ranting in our comments section about the fact that we interviewed Aaron Mate because he goes on RT.
Well, that's right. We coddled him.
We're coddlers. Oh, Greenwald is trending on Twitter. One of our
Glenn Greenwald is trending on Twitter. Whole string of the stupidest comments imaginable if you're feeling that you have a strong stomach. She Nebraskan, by the way, signed up as a paid Substack subscriber this week. So thank you very much for your support, my friend. That was great of you to do. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, I wish I could check, man. I wish I could browse Twitter right now, but I can't because I got to be here with you folks. But
also we're really upset about Elon taking over.
That's
we're not
true.
sure what we're gonna do. We both have blue checks.
Sarah Bareilles quit Twitter apparently today in protest. Sarah, who wrote the song that it was the big song, Brave, at the DNC 2016. Say what you want to say.
I see. Well, as Sarah Bareilles goes, so goes the nation.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think, all the libs want to leave Twitter. I think that's a great start. If they would just, shut the fuck up in real life, then we'd really have a world to live in, Then things would be real great.
I see trees of green.
That's good. That's actually a good Louis Armstrong. That's not bad.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the 28 years of smoking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let me just read some. I'm sorry I can't put these up on the screen.
Counselor Troy quit. Well, maybe her fellow cast member Whoopi would get off there. Then we would really be making some progress.
Okay. This is really amazing, and thank you.
I did not watch Picard season 2 because they brought back Whoopi Goldberg. I can't watch anything with that fucking woman in it. It would have taken me right out of it. I heard it sucked anyway, but that was why I didn't watch it.
This is quite amazing. All right, so I just found 2 tweets off the top of my head here. Let me, in fact, see if I can find these. I'm going to actually try and... Hold on. Stand by, folks. I want to thank you, by the way. It was...
stand down and stand by, dissidents.
Right, stand down and stand by for 1 second. I want to see if I can bring these up. I might not be able to because I just found these on my phone. Let me see if these come up on the browser as well. If not, I'll just read them. Oh, yeah, okay. Here we go. Great. Perfect. All right, wonderful. All right, so yeah, whoever warned us that the comments were stupid, let's just... Let's just take the first couple of these. All right. All right, here we go. Sorry, folks. Again, improvising here, but big news is breaking, so got to do this here.
Once again, looking for an intern.
Someone check on Glenn Greenwald. His fascist president just lost re-election to the based Lula da Silva. I mean, what an extraordinarily ignorant statement. Extraordinarily ignorant comment that is. Greenwald. Okay, let me read one more. I'm only doing 2 because we have a show that we have to get to here. All right. Jair Bolsonaro won't see your tweet celebrating his loss, but Glenn Greenwald will, so crank that shit up. As if Glenn Greenwald is upset that Bolsonaro lost. What Glenn Greenwald has been saying in the run-up to this race is something that everyone with a brain has been feeling, which is nervousness that the polls were way wrong, because the polls were way wrong. If the polling were accurate, Lula would have won this race by 8 points. Instead, he barely squeaked it out by 1.5 points. And so what Greenwald was saying is that the polling industry's reputation is on the line here because it looks like Bolsonaro might pull off an upset, in which case all of these pollsters will have a ton of egg on their face because every single poll has had Lula up by 5+ points. 10+ points going back a few weeks. It looked like he was going to win before the runoff a month back. But the fact of the matter is the polls were way wrong. Bolsonaro's base was way underpolled because he pulled within 2 points of this thing. And all Greenwald was saying was that. All he was doing was expressing that concern. That, in case you're a moron, in case you're dumber than the creature I am dressed as this Halloween, all that means is that he is concerned that the polling industry is wrong. That does not mean he wants Bolsonaro to win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just extraordinary. I wish I had time to go through these. I will this evening.
That's instructive of the bubble these people live in, because I think probably somebody who thinks that, because they've been told, they've been programmed, Glenn Greenwald bad, so he can't be on Lula's side. And they're fundamentally ignorant because their media doesn't tell them things like, Glenn Greenwald is the one that broke the story of the corruption that put Lula in jail. They're not told that in the Times.
Right.
They're not told that in the Washington
This would
Post.
not have happened without Glenn Greenwald.
They don't
it's very
know that,
likely.
They don't know that. They don't know any of that, because the only media they go to would never emphasize that. They would never tell that. I would be shocked if the stories about Lula winning that you would see in the papers tomorrow mention Glenn Greenwald at all. I would be shocked if they do. So, yeah, you're a dumb lib. You're programmed by this bubble media that Glenn Greenwald is this evil right-winger. So in your mind, he must be associated with Bolsonaro, right? Like you want, because for you to think he would be for Lula would open up some daylight between you and your most trusted news sources. And that would force you to question all of your beliefs and your identity. They can't do that. It would create massive cognitive dissonance for them to acknowledge that Glenn Greenwald is basically the reason Lula won tonight. He wouldn't have been in this position without Glenn Greenwald. It never would have happened without. But
he'd have probably still been in prison.
He'd probably still be in prison. They can't think about that because it opens up too much uncomfortable territory. That's too much cognitive dissonance. So that's how you get that kind of stunning ignorance, right? Like, it's Glenn Greenwald. He must be for the bad guy because he's Glenn Greenwald. And somebody told me he was bad. And so what did he report that was bad? I don't know. He talks to Tucker. I don't know. That's what they told me.
Yeah, right. Those are the kinds of people who we're going to showcase in this next segment that we're doing. Yes. Before we get to that, though, I do have to get to this. She Nebraskan. Keegan is 100% correct in his analysis. Well, thank you. And then emoji picked up that he got my name wrong. Frank said, "Tell it, Kegel." Don't feel bad, She Nebraskan. People get my name wrong so constantly in my life. I sometimes I feel a resentment for my parents that they didn't give me just a normal name, because what I have to say is it takes me literally sometimes 4 tries to introduce myself to a person. When I say, "What's your name?"
Keith?
"Hi, Keaton."
That's not that.
Keith? No, Keaton.
That's not
Kieran?
Crazy.
Oh, no.
That's not
Keenan?
crazy.
No, Keaton. Somebody thought I was Peter. I don't know where you got Peter from. Keaton, Peter. It takes me forever. And sometimes, like, if I go to Starbucks, which I rarely do anymore, but when I used to go to Starbucks sometimes and they would ask me, they ask your name when you give them the coffee, I would just say Tim. That's it. Like, forget it. I'm not saying this 4 times. Tim was my coffee name. And so don't feel too bad. All right. It could have been an autocorrect issue too. Who knows?
All right. So a lot of people think I'm going for the Joker. I mean, kind of this, I had a really busy day. And for somebody whose favorite day is Halloween, I really should have put in more effort to make a more clear decision. Literally, I had a fret because I taught myself piano a few years ago, and I always do a Halloween song. So I did science fiction double feature this year, but no one wants to hear me sing that. So I had my friend come over as a ringer to sing the song. And she also, I know she does some makeup. I was like, "Yo, you have any grease paint laying around? We're doing the show tonight. Give me red, white, black. I can work with that." I literally did this in about 3 minutes before we went on the air.
I think it looks good. And what do you think of my work, Russell? Because you didn't even see this until we signed on our new orange parchment backdrop for tonight. I think it looks good.
Very cool.
I think it's pretty cool. By the way, as long as we're trick-or-treating, why don't you guys put a little candy in our bag at patreon.com/do-dissidents.
Come on, man.
And our tip jar is, of course, open. You can hit us up with those super chats. Please, no fentanyl in the super chats, though.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we have to get through the show
Keaton's
tonight.
just getting over that habit.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. You know, we don't want to prove J.D. Vance right 9 days before the vote.
Yeah. Exactly. We're trafficking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, Keaton looks warm and fuzzy as if we were looking for nuts to store away for the winter. This is actually quite comfortable. The only little bit of an annoyance with this is I have a tail. Does anybody see this tail? There it is. So I have to kind of angle myself in the chair away from the tail.
Yeah, but see, there's the thing. Glenn is a leftist. He is a leftist. Like that's it.
I mean,
that's
he
what,
is. I mean, look.
that's
let me
what
just
they
say,
do. People to the left of them are right wing.
I mean, Glenn's husband
we get that all the time.
is a socialist. He is a socialist politician in Brazil. Glenn spoke very favorably of the 2016 Sanders campaign and very harshly of the Democrats for rigging it in Clinton's favor. The only label he has ever ascribed to himself is a civil libertarian, because his thrust as you know, as a journalist has been, you know, civil liberties and stuff. So he is. Yes, Bill is right about that. He has never proclaimed himself to be a leftist, but his opinions have generally been very sympathetic to the left until the left took a turn towards this sort of authoritarian policing of discourse and speech.
Right.
There's footage of Greenwald going back and forth with Bill Maher about Islamophobia and Sam Harris about Islamophobia. Greenwald has spoken very critically of the military-industrial complex, the national security state. These used to be leftist views, right? These used to be left-wing views. So you are right, Bill, that he has never actually called himself a doctrinaire leftist. But if you look at his record, it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that he has moved the ball forward for the left far more than he has for the right. To the extent he has been a water carrier for the right wing, he has simply said and held firm, and I agree with him, that people should have the right to express their opinions, whatever they are, without fear of undue reprimand. Right. And I think that that's absolutely true. And to the extent that the left has become hostile to that notion, he has turned on them. And you know what? They deserve to be turned on for that.
Right. So have I.
Right. Exactly. Absolutely. All right. Let's go to our leader, Barack Obama. Brazil gets Lula. We get Obama.
Look what we got.
Right. And look, I just have to drive this point home. Whether he calls himself a leftist or not, the fourth largest democracy on earth just put back in power one of the most successful left-wing leaders in modern world history. I want to just drive that home. Lula has been perhaps the most successful left-wing leader in modern world history. If you look at the economic numbers, if you look at the people pulled out of desperate poverty, okay, this is a guy who won and did it. He didn't win and get sandbagged and fail and get whacked or get voted out in a landslide because he was sabotaged. This guy won and delivered the goods for his people and was extraordinarily popular to the point where he could basically win a race, you know, the way Eugene Debs tried to win. Not technically. He didn't run from prison, but he went from being a political prisoner to being elected president. And that speaks volumes to his record. And that does not happen in all likelihood. I mean, you can never say never. We can't prove a negative. But in all likelihood, that does not happen without Greenwald's help. And so to people who are saying he's a right-wing stooge, I mean, ridiculous. Absolutely, absolutely absurd. And it's a little, if I may say so, it is a little chauvinistic to say that. I would even venture it's a little bit racist to say that. Because what it is to dismiss the importance of what happened tonight. Brazil, like I said, I'm repeating myself, but it bears repeating. The fourth largest democracy on earth. This is a major country. This is a major country. This is not some tiny island nation who put a socialist in power. This is a major country. And this is a major world event. This is a tremendous global victory for the left. And it came largely thanks to the intrepid journalism of Glenn Greenwald, who put himself at great risk
personal
to do
risk.
this.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Can we go to Obama?
We can go to Obama.
All right. Let's go to Obama. Let's go to the real Joker, Barack Obama. Yeah. No costume necessary. So our friends over at the LaRouche movement, our friends and sponsors,
our new friends at LaRouche,
our new friends over at LaRouche have been
I mean, what's good is they believe in the gold standard, so they've been sending us gold.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, exactly.
They're just sending us. They're not even doing money. Ever since we interviewed those kids, we've been getting gold bricks.
Right. No Venmo, no paper money,
nope,
no super chat, nothing.
None of that.
Cardboard boxes in the mail.
That's
pretty heavy. That's the way we like it.
Yeah, with the treasury stamp on it. I don't know how they get to that stuff.
Exactly. So Obama was in Michigan doing some rallies in preparation for the November 8th vote. And you know what? Should we do that now? Yeah, let's just do that now, so I don't have to cut the segment. We'll actually clip this separately, but we have finalized our midterm week coverage. So everybody, we have this finalized. There's going to be graphics up on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram. So follow us on all those places. We'll have a graphic for this, so you keep it in your mind. But write it down now or put it in your phone, whatever. We have our midterm week coverage schedule finalized, and it is as follows. It begins this Thursday, November 3rd at 4 p.m. We will preview the key governors' races. On Friday, November 4th at 4 p.m. as well, we will preview the House races. On Saturday the 5th at 5 p.m., because Russell will be doing this from his Airbnb and or a Starbucks and or a bar in the great city of Buffalo, New York. At 5 p.m. on Saturday, that will be
it is with your
Senate
super
races.
chats that I've become a remote correspondent.
Right, exactly. Shipping them up to Buffalo.
Unlike the Young Turks, we actually hire reporters after you give us money.
Right. Right, exactly. They just happen to be ourselves. Yeah. Saturday at 5 p.m., we will preview the key Senate races. And on Sunday, 1 week from this evening at the regular time slot of 7 p.m., we will give our final midterm predictions. We are off on Monday to rest up. And then on Tuesday night is the big party. We will be live streaming starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time and giving you full midterm election results. That is going to be an all-nighter. That is going to be a long and wild stream. And so we hope you can join us Thursday at 4 for the governor's races, Friday at 4 for the House race previews, Saturday at 5 for the Senate race previews, Sunday at 7 for our final predictions, and then Tuesday night at 6:30 is our midterm election night watch party. Be here for that. Do not think you're going to get
guests.
We will have special guests that night as well. And be here for that. Do not think you're going to get better coverage on CNN or MSNBC or the Young Turks. We do it better than anybody. We're not just saying that. We actually do a better job than anybody at covering these things. And so we will have up to the minute live results. And so make sure that
we'll be
tune
drinking
in
beers, eating pizzas.
Right. We get the pizza, we get the beer. We hang out all night. We'll be collecting some super chat donations from you guys. You guys will make it worth our while.
Party at the end of the world.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. So Barack Obama was in Michigan campaigning in advance of the November 8th vote, and our friends and sponsors over at the LaRouche movement were in attendance. They are on a roll. They obviously disrupted an AOC town hall. Kynan Thistlethwaite and Jose Vega were the protesters who did that. We had the great pleasure of interviewing them about a week or so back. They disrupted not Jose and Kynan themselves, but their friends. Disrupted an Elizabeth Warren and Ayanna Pressley events calling for an end to the war in Ukraine. They recently disrupted an Ilhan Omar event as well. But now they went for the big fish, Mr. Barack Obama. So I'm going to play this, and I'm going to play this from two different perspectives. Okay? We're going to see the CNN footage of Obama's speech, and he is talking about an event that we really cannot talk about without getting canceled, unfortunately. But he's giving some comments on an event that, you know, what do they say? If you got nothing nice to say, right? So we're going to stick to that principle. We're going to wait. We're going to wait until the window where you can't get in trouble for joking about it is passed, right? And once that window passes, we will cover it. But until then, sorry, folks.
We'll be waiting 4 years for that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, we can't do our midterm week coverage from Rikers Island. The Wi-Fi sucks in there, and so we got to kind of hold our tongues. But he was talking about a certain thing.
And they take your sneakers, too.
Exactly. He was talking about a certain thing that happened this past week that we cannot speak on. And as he was speaking about that, he was interrupted by some anti-war protesters. So I'm going to play this from two different angles. One is the CNN angle, in which you can barely hear the protester and you only hear Obama talking. And then we're going to hear the protesters' footage, or whoever was in the crowd right near what was happening. We're going to hear that footage so we hear the protester a little bit better. So we're going to, like I said, play this from two angles to make sure we do a thorough job. We want to be credible journalists to live up to our, you know,
to live up to our Pulitzer, which is
right
back there on the shelf. I'm sitting in front of it. You can't see it right now.
Right. Exactly.
Right back here.
He doesn't like to, you know, brag.
I don't like to brag. I'm not a Kanye.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So here's the Obama POV first.
Making wild, crazy allegations about them. That creates a dangerous climate. And if elected officials don't do more to explicitly reject that kind of rhetoric, if they tacitly support it or encourage their supporters to stand outside voting places armed with guns and dressed in tactical gear, more people can get hurt. And we're going to be violating the basic spirit of this country. Yes. So, sir, wait, come on. But this is what I mean. This is what I mean. I mean, we're having a conversation.
Now, hold on. I want to stop it for a second here. This is what I mean. He was talking about the thing we're not allowed to talk about yet. We all know. You see it on the chyron there. Mm-hmm. This is what I mean, meaning a concerned citizen who's afraid we're headed to nuclear war, challenging an ex-president at a town hall saying, hey, where's the anti-war effort here? Where are the voices of sanity? That's exactly what Barack Obama is talking about. This is the kind of disruptive behavior that leads to the thing happening that we're not allowed to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
what a sleazebag.
right.
I mean, what a sleazebag.
How dare people exercise their constitutional rights in a democracy?
Right.
That's not how we do things.
Right. Exactly.
That's not how it hasn't that become apparent by now that you are not living in a democracy, sir? That your job is to parrot whatever the media that favors us tells you to parrot. Right. That is the only thing that will give you value in our eyes. As soon as you supply any counter narrative or any resistance, you will become a right winger. You will become a deplorable. You will become an ultra mega MAGA person.
Right.
Haven't we made that clear that we're not interested in having these discussions?
Right. Exactly. That's the subtext of what he's saying. That was perfectly put.
Sir, this is what I'm saying. Look, there is a process that we set up in our democracy.
And that's working very well.
You'll have a chance to talk sometime.
Oh, right. They're gonna platform him.
Right. Yeah. Right, exactly.
It's not a good way to do business. You wouldn't do that at a workplace. in the middle of a conversation. It's not how we do things.
What a neoliberal response. You wouldn't do that at a workplace. He's not at a workplace. He's at a political event.
He's at a political speech, and you're a fucking politician.
Right, exactly. He's not at work. He doesn't answer to you. You, in theory, answer to him.
Yeah,
you wouldn't do this at a workplace?
I like this. That's a good one, Rupert.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say nuclear
war is very rude.
Nothing ruins a dinner like a mushroom cloud. Right, exactly. All right, let's keep going because we have more to get to. Like I said, we have to play the other side of this.
Part of the point that I want to make. Just basic civility and courtesy works, and that's what we want to try to encourage. So listen, that's okay. No. Wait. Quiet down. Look,
okay, so there's the guy.
Listen.
There he is. All right, now they take him out. Hold on. Now he tries to do the thing where, see, it's fun. It's, like I said, just a total sleaze. When they start dragging him out, he says, hold on. Like, oh, no, wait, let's have a conversation. As they're already dragging the guy out. Now he's going to do the civil thing.
Hang on. I'm going to do my pretending to drink a glass of water trick.
Yeah, you didn't even stay for the finale.
It's coming. We got some Flint water right here.
Listen, everybody. Hey, y'all up there, pay attention.
All right, that's that. All right, now I want to play, because we didn't really hear what the protester had to say there, because the camera and the microphones were actually on Obama. That was a CNN broadcast. So now we're going to hear what the protester himself had to say. We'll hear his side.
You overthrew the legitimate Ukraine in 2014. Tell us about your plan.
Okay, I'm sorry. I should have cleared this up. There were two protesters. So one of them is holding the camera, and then her friend is also in the audience.
It's for nuclear war with Russia. Stop provoking nuclear war with Russia. You're going to kill us in nuclear war. Russia's the enemy. Russia is not the enemy. Russia's the enemy. Stop getting us into nuclear war with Russia. No nuclear war. Victorian Nuland financed the overthrow.
Mr. President, there's more people that are going to get hurt if we go into nuclear war. Right now, we're on the verge of nuclear war thanks to what you did in Ukraine in 2014. Why won't you tell the truth about what you did to overthrow Ukraine in 2014?
Okay, so now you hear the chants. Obama, Obama, Obama. Now, here's the point I want to make here, okay? We've heard for the last few weeks about how the LaRouchers are cultists. Well, who sounds like the cult here? The LaRoucher? Making a completely reasonable argument against nuclear war? Or the hordes of sub-morons chanting, Obama, Obama, Obama. You tell me who's the cult. Tell me who's in the cult. You want to say the LaRouchers are a cult? Maybe they are, maybe that. Look, I don't know. The guys I talked to didn't seem like cultists to me. They seemed like very independent thinkers who had their own ideas that they wanted to get through to us when we were interviewing them. The people who seem like the cultists are the people who mindlessly chant Obama, Obama, Obama over this guy's arguments. The Democratic Party is a cult. The Republican Party is a cult. The Trump movement is a cult. The Obama faithful are a cult. Okay?
Yep.
No one's any less cult-like than anyone else here. And you're going to tell me that these guys are in a cult when that is the response to this guy? Come on.
Based on recent events and recent narratives and recent ideas that have become popularized, I've come to the conclusion now that there's literally nothing that these people will reject if they're told it's what they're supposed to believe. Literally nothing. There really isn't. There does, because I haven't seen them find a limit. And that makes sense, because as soon as you question what the party tells you, then you have to question everything, right? So it doesn't seem to matter, and it really is like a cult. It just doesn't seem to matter how crazy, how insane, how dangerous the things they're being told are. Like you've got more and more articles. Well, so what should we do if Russia launches a nuke? These people should be running around screaming with their hair on fire. A lot of these very Libby suburban people, they have children. Even that doesn't seem to matter. Whatever they're told to believe, they will believe. There does not seem to be a limit to how crazy, how absurd, how ridiculous, how contradictory to what they were told yesterday it is. Look what happened with Tara Reid. They're right at the peak of Me Too, and these were the same exact people who were all hashtag Me Tooing, right? As soon as they deploy the nuts and sluts defense, none of them have a problem with it. They all parrot it. They're told that's what you're supposed to say. Well, she's not reliable, and wow, and they just went with that.
I mean, does anybody in this room, which by the way, it looks like a pretty shit crowd that he drew. I don't know. I mean, it's
for Barack Obama,
yeah, that looks like a pretty small room and a pretty lousy crowd. Do you think anybody in this room even knows what he's talking about? What happened in 2014? They don't know. They don't care. These people are dumb. They are shallow. They are incurious. They are uninterested. They have no real politics. And that is how you get a reaction like this. All right, let's just play this out.
Will you tell the truth?
This is what I'm saying.
Will you tell the truth?
There is a process that we set up in our democracy.
Yeah, but we're on the verge of nuclear war. Do you care
There's
about
a
the lives?
process that we set up in our democracy where I get to come up here and play Mr. Cool and run my mouth, and you get to chant my name. And if you have a grievance, you can tweet at me, and no one will ever read it, and it'll never get to me. That's how you follow the process. You don't follow the process by coming to my event in person and actually getting my attention like you just have. That's not democracy. Again, this is Orwellian. This is what democracy is right here. Democracy is a concerned citizen appearing at a political event and voicing his concerns to someone, right, right, who is not technically empowered to do anything about it now. But if Barack Obama could sway a primary with a phone call, maybe he could, spare 10 minutes, give a call to Uncle Joe, and remind Uncle Joe of what Barack Obama's own policy towards Ukraine was, which is it's always going to be more important to Russia than it is to us, and so we are not willing to spill blood over this. That's the other thing. Barack Obama knows this guy is right. Barack Obama agrees with this guy. He agrees with him.
Right.
And yet he's going to gaslight him and this entire room full of people with this nonsense.
That's not how democracy works.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's not how it works. Peasant.
You're right.
Peasant. What's the matter? Run out of frog legs?
Will you tell the truth before the world walks into World War?
You wouldn't do that in the workplace.
The coup of 2014 is on your doorstep. You were the one they allowed for a radical.
The other thing that's amazing about this is that this is now, I think, the fourth high-profile instance of this. You had AOC, you had the Ayanna Pressley Warren student debt town hall where they did this. You had the Ilhan Omar thing, which went semi-viral. And now you have this. So, by now, you should be, if not prepared for this. This is a story at this point, that these guys are out here doing this. So you would think at some point they would prepare an answer to these people. But no, they go back to the same thing over and over and over again, which is you're being rude, disrupting our event. And they never, ever even bother to concoct a response, and this is the liberal class at work.
That's right.
Right.
They
don't owe you a response. They don't feel any pressure to
Right.
convince you of anything. It's
and Obama is a master of this gaslighting, where he'll come out and pretend there's some kind of functioning democracy here, where the people's voices are heard, And when they try to exercise that right, what does he do? He goes up there the night before Super Tuesday, gets everybody to drop out of the race, and makes sure to crush Bernie. Make sure that the voices of the voters are not heard, that the establishment Democrats can get their way. So this is what happens when, Kennedy said it, right? When you make peaceful revolution impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable. So everybody's clutching their pearls, and we won't get specific, but everybody's clutching their pearls about political violence. Well, that would be exactly what you would expect in an oligarchy parading as a democracy. This is not a democracy. Obama's don't boo, vote. Then, so millions of young people come out to vote, and then you go kneecap their choice right before he's about to clinch the nomination for all effects and purposes. And then you don't expect to confront things like this when you go out on the road. Get used to it, Jack. You're going to get a lot more of this. I think the days when these politicians could just walk around with impunity and put on this charade of democracy, I think those things are rapidly drawing to a close.
Somebody said there, hold on, let me rewind this. I didn't catch this the first time. Yep. Go to your own rally. Did everybody hear that? Let me play that again. Somebody screamed at him, go to your own rally.
Go to your own rally.
Here. Everybody, make sure you hear this.
You were the one they allowed for radical.
Go to your own rally. Go to your own rally. The saviors of democracy, everybody. Go to your own rally. They're going to protect
we better
democracy.
vote with these people.
Oh, we better vote
won't have
these people in.
democracy.
Oh, we better vote these people in. Don't speak at our rally. Go to your own rally.
Go to your own rally.
The anti-fascists are here, everyone. The cavalry is coming, everyone. Fear not. Fear not.
This is terrifying for liberals, because if you tear down Obama, who's safe in their pantheon? If you can really undermine the idea that Obama was a great president, generally, the majority of the American people understand that he wasn't. But if you can really penetrate the narrative, if you can start to really challenge the mainstream narrative that Obama was a great president, that's very dangerous. It's very dangerous, their whole project, right? I mean, what do you got left? A rapist and the Pepperidge
and his
Farm
wife, who covered for him so that she could be president too.
Right, and then you got the Pepperidge Farm guy with Alzheimer's that's in there right now.
Exactly.
So Obama is the thing they can point to as their great triumph. You start poking holes in that narrative. You start challenging him when he's out on the road. Really, like that, to attack Obama like that, it's just shocking for them. Oh my God.
Yeah. And just the blindness.
That should happen every time he shows his face in public. They should not just be shouting that. Why did you bail out the bankers and prosecute the homeowners?
Right.
Why?
Exactly.
Everywhere he goes, he should be hearing that.
That was really the turning point.
Why didn't anyone go to jail?
Right.
Do you think that has anything to do with why Donald Trump got elected? Because you didn't put anyone in jail?
Right. You let the banks hand out bonuses to executives with bailout money. Don't tell me you didn't. You did. Because you know what? And you know how I know that you did? Because executives at banks are still getting bonuses right now. and they would not exist in their current form without bailout money. So don't be technical with me, okay?
Right.
Don't be technical with me. There were bonuses handed out to executives with bailout money as people who fudged data on their mortgage applications, which, by the way, a lot of those people were baited into doing that. Of course they were. The whole system was set up to encourage them to do that, right? They were incentivized. They were nudged to do that.
The system was so corrupt. I walked into Citibank as a theater owner with no demonstrable income, and they just handed me $8,000, no questions asked.
Right.
During that period before the crash.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And so you kick those people out of their homes and you let these executives get richer. That was a real turning point in this country's history. That's what led to Donald Trump. It's what led to just the general malaise and anger and resentment and hatred that exists right now. I would say more than anything else. More than anything else. And how anybody could take this guy seriously anymore is just beyond me. How anybody can think that this guy stands for anything but a fantastical West Wing version of a politics that simply does not exist anymore. It really didn't exist even when he was president. It didn't exist. He pretended it existed to cover for his own failures. That was the whole, hey, you got to get a bill to my desk. And look, I bought that shit. I was a lib at that time too. I said, you know what? He's right. He's being the grown up in the room saying, no, I'm not just going to do all these things via executive order. I'm the executive. There's a legislative branch. This is what we mean by the West Wing, right? The system must work. The system has to work. And therefore, good on Barack Obama for standing above it all and saying, you guys, it's your job to get a bill to my desk. So you do your job and I'll do mine. He looked like the adult in the room and we all bought it. But here's the thing. The only thing Barack Obama ever cared about was looking like he was the adult in the room. It's the only thing he ever actually wanted was to look presidential, look like he belonged in the
Nobody wants
office.
to talk about the fact that he was going to cut Medicare and Social Security.
Right.
He had a deal all ready to go. He was ready to do that deal. For what reason? You know, that's that very West Wing vision. Well, the Republicans, they want to cut Social Security, and I want to raise some taxes, so we're going to make a deal. We're going to make a deal with each other. All right. Well, so what does that do for anybody? It's the deal is a absolute good without examining the result of the deal. Yes, it's showing the system working, but who's it working for? It's not working for the people who elected you. So how does that? So Republicans and Democrats come to an agreement. What does that mean?
Right.
They agree on horrible things all the time. Every military budget, they agree. What is that doing for us? How is that helping the country? Usually when Republicans and Democrats agree, which they do most of the time, the things that we talk about are the few areas that they don't. And granted, they're significant areas. But look, man, I mean, they hand out money to corporations and to the military industrial complex like cotton candy, man. They do. There's no disagreement. There's no daylight between them on that. You know, fucking Rand Paul gets up there and says some shit about it, and that's it. They vote for it anyway.
Right, exactly. And meanwhile, the country just deteriorates.
Right.
Worse and worse and worse.
Right.
We had a super chat. Somebody kicked in. Who we've never met you before, Colin, Radix Carter, but thank you so much for the $4.99. The fact that Obama is campaigning for the Dems 2 weeks before midterms instead of Biden, where is he, shows how unpopular Biden is. That's an excellent point. I mean, not that Biden hasn't been out there, but, I mean, it's not true that Biden hasn't been out there. But the fact that they're sending Obama to Michigan, look, I have a segment that I'm going to record for the Patreon.
And that's never worked
tomorrow about this. But
this isn't the first time they've deployed him, and it's never actually done anything.
Well, because no one's buying it anymore. People don't buy it anymore. The country is
the people who buy it. You already got their vote.
Right, exactly.
It's not winning anyone over who wasn't already voting for you.
And they're going to show up. It's not like they're not going to show up, right? It's
Anybody who is looking at Obama as an inspirational figure, they're voting.
Right. Exactly.
They got the little Michelle Obama book. Unlike me, I promise you won't find that behind me here. My Pulitzer.
I was doing an Instacart order this afternoon. For those who don't know, I do gig work throughout the day. That's my day job. Uber, DoorDash, Grubhub, Instacart. I do them all. Once again, patreon.com/DoDissidents to help us get out of our day jobs here and help do this more full time. And please, if you can, throw a buck or two in our tip jar via Super Chat. We would love you for that as well.
Those the guys we're doing a slot with next week.
Oh yeah, Colin is my brother from another mother in Indie News Network. Oh, I think we're coming on your show in a couple weeks. The day after Election Day. I got the invite, and so we'll do an informal plug of that now. We're going to be on with the Indie News Network on Indie Left Media Wednesday, November 9th, 9 p.m. There we go. Perfect. Well, nice to meet you guys. But yeah,
they're we gave them our terms. They're not allowed to talk about politics, food, or sports.
Right, exactly right.
Other than that, it's going to be a lively conversation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm assuming we're going to do midterm analysis post game, right? I mean, that's pretty much all there's going to be to talk about that day. I mean, it's their show; they could tell us to talk about whatever they want.
I mean, I have my degree in the biology of mollusks, and I was hoping we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we haven't gotten a chance to put that to work on this show yet, but maybe someday. Before we get into our horror films, I just want a personal anecdote, just an example. I mean, and this is something that people just experience all the time. I'm in BJ's, like a Sam's Club type wholesale store. I have my list of items that the customer needs. There's a thing of Cracker Barrel cheese. I can't find this cheese. I'm going to the cheese section where the deli is, no cheese. Then they have the gourmet cheese section, no cheese. I try to find somebody to help me where the cheese is. All right. And I'm not, like I said, this is not to mock anybody. I have full empathy for all people. That's what informs this show. That's why I consider myself on the left. But you have a person come out from behind the deli counter and I say, pardon me, can you tell me where this cheese is? This person could not talk. Like this is nightmare stuff. The person says, "Oh, that cheese. Oh, that cheese." I say, "Yeah, do you know where this is?" "Oh, it's over there. Cold." I say, "Cold." I said, what are you talking about? Cold. I said, I don't, can you show me where it is? Can you
the story is getting very Halloween-y.
It is Halloween. She says, no, it's cold over there. Cold. I said, what? She says, it's cold in the cooler. Like, she wouldn't walk me over to the cooler because it was too cold, but she didn't know how to talk. Like, these are, like I said, I'm not saying this to make fun of me, but these are people who need help. Like, these are people who need mental health help. These are not people who should have to be working for $14 an hour at a fucking wholesale club. You know what I mean? Like, these are people who are in desperate situations. The fact that they're there working is a sad commentary in itself. Not that there shouldn't be opportunities for people, but this is somebody who like they can't function. They can't speak. They're obviously troubled. They can't walk near a refrigerator because it's too cold. I go to the other guy. I get to where she points me to. It's shockingly not there. So I ask another guy, right? Second guy. Like I said, you talk about a Halloween movie. The guy says, cheese. What cheese? He says, well, this over here, it's not here because this is meat. It's not over there because that's fish over there. Over there, that's where we keep the chicken, so it can't be over there. I'm like, okay, I don't need a directory of the store. I need to know where this thing is. Bizarre, man. And this is what I mean. Like, it's just upside down. It's upside down. Things are not working. It's like the Twilight Zone. This is a collapsing society. These minor details all contribute to the feeling that. Sure. And so this guy comes out here. Hey, listen, you got to know, listen, the way we set this democracy up, I talk like this ain't the world people are living in, man. People, a trip to the supermarket is a dystopian adventure. I mean, like, what world are you fucking in?
This sounds like the French classic dystopian nightmare Delicatessen. If anyone's ever seen it.
Yeah, that was who directed that? Was that
what's his name?
Was that the guy who did Amelie? I think it was, right?
I think it was. I think
so.
Yeah,
I forget his name. But, anyway, that's a good segment into our movies, our fun Halloween movie segment. So we thought, everybody, for Halloween, we would count down our top 10 dissident horror films. So socially relevant, politically relevant pieces of horror cinema. Russell and I are both big movie fans. And big horror movie fans. I find I've always gotten a kick out of the horror genre because I think it's perhaps the most inherently cinematic movie genre. Like it's a genre that is really tough to recreate elsewhere. Not that there aren't great horror novels or great horror plays, the old Grand Guignol theater.
I used to do a horror theater festival.
Well, like I said,
and horror on stage can be really disconcerting if you go there.
Oh, I
Because
know.
that being in the room with it like that, if you really direct that well, yeah, that can.
Well,
be
one
really
of the
powerful.
movies that we almost put on this list is a movie called Bug, which is based on a
which
stage
is based
play.
on a play. Yeah.
And I directed a stage version of that.
Oh, did you?
And people walked out towards the end sometimes because it got too intense. I mean, we did, to our credit, we'll pat ourselves on the back, a pretty fantastic job of that. I mean, we poured out the fake blood. I mean, I saw it as a movie because, I saw the movie and I knew the movie was based on a stage play. And the movie is starring the great Michael Shannon, Ashley Judd. Actually, Harry Connick Jr. plays a real bastard. He plays like this abusive ex-husband. And he's actually very, very good in the movie. And it was directed by William Friedkin, obviously a great horror filmmaker, directed, The Exorcist.
The Exorcist, yeah.
And there's a scene, the movie is basically about this soldier who, he's just this wanderer, and he finds his way to this motel where this lonely woman is living, hiding from her ex-husband who's, stalks her and torments her and things like that. And romance forms. But he is convinced that the military has done an experiment on him and has implanted bugs in his skin. And there's a moment where he is convinced that there are bug sacks under his teeth. And so there's this phenomenal scene in the movie where he takes a pair of pliers and he rips his tooth out. And when I'm watching that in the movie theater, I'm like, wait a minute, if this is based on a play, that means he must do this on stage. And my mind was blown because I'm like, I didn't know you could do that on stage. I didn't know you could rip a tooth out on stage.
Sure.
And so I'm like, I got to read this play. I was working at a theater at the time, and so we put this play on, and yeah, man, gallons of fake blood every night. We spent 2 hours wiping blood off the stage after the house closed every night to get the theater ready for the next day. That was great.
That was my life for a long time.
Wiping fake blood off the stage. Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah,
takes a while.
Because we did it for years. Like we developed a lot of expertise. We had different kinds of blood pumps depending on what we were going for. Realistic or anime.
Right. Yeah.
So, all right. So we want to get into this.
All right, let's get the countdown started. Go ahead with our number 10.
At number 10, Society. Okay, so Society was actually made in 1989, but it was only released in Europe at that time. In Europe, it was a big hit. You have to remember, Society, I don't think would be as transgressive today, although I think it still holds up. I watched it again pretty recently. The Europeans went for it. In America, we're not far out of the John Hughes era. And basically, Society is a very dark, grotesque body horror picking apart, really, of the whole John Hughes movie era. So the protagonist senses something very creepy about his family, about his town, about his sister, about his parents. And an ex-boyfriend of his sister comes to him with a tape claiming that this is a sick orgy that took place among his parents and all of their upper-class friends. And over the course of the film, he uncovers, I don't want to spoil the film for anyone who wants to watch it, but he uncovers a very sick society going on behind the veil of this very John Hughes kind of upper class, perfect suburban idyll that he lives in. So it's been described as the anti-Ferris Bueller. And in a lot of ways it is, with elements of someone else who will come up again on this list, David Cronenberg, mixed in, because there is a lot of grotesque body horror in it. The reviewer at the New York Times was horrified by it, which right there, you should check it out. Variety called it very pretentious and tries to add an element of sexual kink into special effects makeup. And for some reason, they thought that was a bad thing. So if that doesn't make you want to see it, I don't know what will.
Yeah, no, I mean, and those kinds of gore effects we kind of take for granted now, but there's something about those 80s and 90s gore effects that just, I don't know.
Well, because they were practical. They weren't CGI.
Right. It's the same way that like the Jurassic Park dinosaurs
Right.
still look better than all of the CGI dinosaurs now because they were real. They were animatronic.
Right.
They were actual structures, and it was just a matter of getting them to move.
You can't
was the
get
illusion.
that. You just can't get that with CGI. Right. Okay, so Aiden, I just want to mention this. We actually talked about putting They Live on there. My argument is you really can't call that a horror film. It is a sci-fi film. It's a straight sci-fi film. If I went down that road, this would be a completely different list. This would be a list that would have Planet of the Apes on it. It would have one of my favorites, A Boy and His Dog. It would be a completely different list. But I decided consciously to stick to things that can reasonably be considered horror.
Yeah, I pitched They Live to Russell with the rationale, by the way, that the same rationale as yours, that Invasion of the Body Snatchers is somewhat of a right-wing film in the sense that it was sort of an anti-communist film, or at least perceived that way. And Russell will make the case that it's a bit deeper than that. And so we will get to that later because that is on the list. We don't want to spoil the list for everybody, but that is certainly on here. But yeah, if we delved into sci-fi, there would be a ton of great ones. One of my favorite sci-fi, and I almost made a case for this one, but it's Bong Joon-ho, who directed Parasite. His monster movie called The Host, phenomenal.
You know what?
Phenomenal.
I have never gotten around to it. It's on my list forever.
Phenomenal.
On
One
Netflix,
of the best movies of the century.
I've been meaning to watch it forever.
One of the best films of the century. But
I will see it.
More
maybe
sci-fi.
That will be my Halloween viewing.
There you go.
I'll go for that.
So worth it. Amazing. But it is more sci-fi. That's why I didn't lobby for it. All right. Anyway, number 9 is a more recent film called The Hunt. And this was a Blumhouse film that we actually did a full episode, Russell and I, on the defunct, falsely started Dissident Film Club podcast. We actually started to do a whole nother podcast just about politically relevant, revolutionary, subversive cinema. And actually, I am going to publish the full episode because it is vaulted. It's nowhere to be found for the public anymore. But I will publish that on the Patreon feed tomorrow as a little Halloween present to our patrons and our paid Substack subscribers. So you can get more details on this if you sign up, patreon.com/do dissidents. But The Hunt, the thing that's really fascinating about The Hunt is how lazy and knee-jerk the right-wing media reaction to this film was. The premise of this film is that a bunch of PMC liberals pay to go to this sort of park where they get to hunt down MAGA people. And the film is really told from the perspective of the deplorables. And so the film is very sympathetic to the right-wing white trash. They are the heroes. And the PMC libs hunting them down are the villains, obviously. But right-wing media, and even Trump himself, they did not bother to check under the hood and actually do any research about what the actual film was or what it was about or what its point of view was. All they knew was, here's a movie where liberals hunt conservatives, and isn't this obscene? And the film, was very ill-timed. It was actually set to be released just as we locked down. I think March 2020. Yeah. And so it went to streaming and, sort of a modest cult hit on the various streaming services. But it is quite funny and quite a good time and very subversive in a number of ways. I don't want to say too much about it because it is kind of a fun, surprising film. But, it's funny. It's violent. It's definitely, because of how recent it is, it definitely is perhaps one of the most politically relevant films on this list in terms of just where we are right now, because it came out so recently.
Right.
But yeah, definitely recommend The Hunt.
And it did show how knee jerk the whole media complex is. Like, if you understood anything about the tropes of horror and you watched that trailer, you'd understand that the libs were the bad guys. Like
right. It was pretty obvious.
It was very obvious. but this is it's a problem. It's a problem throughout the political spectrum. You just have so many clickbait seeking journalists and media personalities who just have a financial interest in ginning up controversy and putting out the word, oh, be outraged. It's just this outrage factory that just they don't want to waste a good opportunity to manufacture a controversy. Trump might have been dumb enough not to understand it, but I doubt most of the people commenting really didn't understand that about
I mean, if anything, you'd think they would tout it. You think they would want the film to do well, because this is one of the very, very rare movies where, deplorables are actually put in a good light.
Damon Lindelof was one of the writers from Lost. I think they couldn't imagine that somebody that deep into Hollywood, like a Hollywood guy in good standing, would make a movie that was sympathetic towards them. Like that, I'll say.
Right.
That just wouldn't have even occurred to them that, really? Guy who did Lost? Really?
Right. There's not going to be some twist here where at the end where it turns out, nothing is as it seemed. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on down the list, my friend. You're up.
All right. So this one. All right. So tell me in the chat if anyone's seen this one. Videodrome. I grew up in a society that was so corrupt that they let me they let me buy a ticket and go see that at 13 years old by myself one afternoon at a matinee. And I liked it then, and I still like it now. So Videodrome was the first studio financed movie that David Cronenberg did. And that also tells you a lot about how much the film industry has changed. Because if you pitched this to a studio today, they'd probably shoot you. They would definitely laugh you out of the office if you pitched basically a techno surrealist nightmare with whose plot becomes increasingly disjointed and difficult to follow over the course of it. This would not get made today. All right. So James Woods plays somebody working at a UHF station.
Deplorable James Woods.
Deplorable James Woods. So UHF stations, this is largely a forgotten bit of history. This is like before cable. They were like indie TV stations. Basically, it was like the equivalent of AM radio. Just these very small independent TV stations. So he picks up a feed from something called Videodrome that's supposedly being broadcast from Malaysia or someplace out of the country, where it's sadomasochistic sex and murder. These are snuff films or purporting to be. And he persuades the station to start broadcasting it because who's going to come after you for the rights? Right. So let's just rebroadcast this Videodrome. So he hooks up with Deborah Harry from Blondie, who's in this film also. She's kind of a sadomasochistic radio host. She's really turned on by Videodrome when he shows it to her. She hears they're broadcasting in Pittsburgh. She goes to find them to be in it, and she disappears. From there, the film grows increasingly Cronenberg-y. James Woods, in his research, traces this back to a media figure, Oblivion, who's kind of like modeled on Marshall McLuhan, because David Cronenberg actually knew Marshall McLuhan. He was teaching at the University of Toronto when he went there. And he is using this Videodrome project to advance human consciousness. He believes that exposure to the special signals coming out from Videodrome will release people into the new flesh, into a new form of being. Now, the reason I put this on this list is because in a lot of ways, if you go back and you watch Videodrome now, Videodrome is like 30 years ahead of its time.
Oh,
in a lot of respects, Videodrome is predicting the influence of the internet, the influence of smartphones. It's predicting a world where people's consciousness is constantly being shaped by media images until they are transformed into a different form of consciousness, which I would argue we're kind of there now.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly why a studio would never touch this now, because Hollywood is so integrated into that new model of consumption that to do that is subversive in a way that movies just aren't anymore.
Right. Not only that, this is very built around the VCR technology.
Mm-hmm.
And James Woods eventually develops more and more hallucinations. Supposedly, you get a brain tumor from watching Videodrome, but it's not clear whether that's true, whether that's part of the illusion. But increasingly, it becomes more and more surreal until eventually he develops what is basically a vagina in his stomach, into which he puts different video cassettes, which give him instructions depending on which side of this war for consciousness is trying to control him. Again, if you know Cronenberg's work, very Cronenberg, with conspiracies and secret societies and wars going on beneath the surface of our everyday reality and shadowy government agencies. All of that is in there. Naked Lunch, Scanners, Cronenberg. This is very Cronenberg film, and some people say this is the best of that type of Cronenberg film, and I would tend to agree. But if you go back and you watch this now, knowing it's made in 1983, it's kind of like when you go back and you watch Network, and it's shocking how predictive that movie is. It's like that with Videodrome, but in a much darker, more surreal way.
Yeah, oh, very well said. Second all of that. All right, you're up again here with another pick.
All right, so the Stepford Wives was based on a book by Ira Levin that came out in 1972. He was having quite a film adaptation streak. He also wrote a book called The Boys of Brazil that was a big hit right around the same time. Now, the Stepford Wives, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it was really this kind of second wave feminist film, kind of critiquing the entire vision of docile housewives in the suburbs. It was kind of a slam on that Eisenhower era vision. So Catherine Ross is the lead. Her and her husband move out to these suburbs where the women are strangely docile. She befriends this kind of, more normal woman, and they're both kind of creeped out by the other women. And as they start to do research, they discover that these women had all been like radical feminists and had all been active in political causes. And now they just want to make tea, and they're obsessed with cleaning products. They're completely creepy. So it turns out, is this really going to be a spoiler? This movie is from 1975. Everyone knows what the Stepford Wives are, right?
Right. It's a popular reference. When you reference the Stepford Wives, people generally know what you mean by that. So I think you're free to spoil it. If people don't want to see the spoiler, then just turn the volume down. And here, I will take the graphic off when the spoilers are over. How's that? So you know when to turn it back on.
There you go. So it turns out that they're turning their wives into robots. And basically they're killing their actual wives. they're creating these perfect robot wives. Interestingly, you would think feminists of the era would have been all about it. Betty Friedan didn't like it. She said it was ripping off the women's movement. I don't know what she meant by that. Don't you want to inspire art? Don't you want to inspire culture? Like, there was nothing about this movie that subverted the women's movement. It was very much a very unambiguous statement against those traditional gender roles. So I really don't know what she meant by that. Maybe she was in a bad mood. But I used to watch this movie as a child, and it terrified me. Like that, the closing image, I still remember it to this day. I probably haven't seen this movie in decades. Catherine Ross pushing the shopping cart through the supermarket. Yes. Hello. How are terrifying. That movie was terrifying. So yeah, very, very well done. Proto-feminist, unabashedly political film.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right, I will take that off of the screen. What's next here? Oh, I'm up next here. So this is a film that I lobbied for to get on here, and this is a horror film. This is not a sci-fi film. The tone of this film is very decidedly a horror film. This is 2007's The Mist. Now, this is a very diplomatic choice that we've made here, because given our feelings for Stephen King, the man, I think it's very big of us that we would include a film based on one of his works on our top 10 list. See, so I mean, the guy's a moron, but he's a good writer.
I didn't understand why there was that statue of Stepan Bandera in the movie.
You're right, yeah,
Now I get it. Now I
get
get
it. I get it. The Mist was directed by Frank Darabont, who directed The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, two other adaptations of King's works. And this film, I would argue, is also very, very relevant to today, in that this movie is about, well, I'll just say on the sort of surface level, the movie is about a small town in Maine that all of a sudden falls under this mysterious mist, this fog. And in that fog, there are monsters, these sort of otherworldly, interdimensional creatures that come and basically hunt down all the people who are stranded in this supermarket, right? And within the supermarket, the people who are still there have this sort of society of their own that they have to form. Leaders emerge. People question those leaders. Religious fanatics emerge and sort of create a sort of cult within the group aimed at repenting, accepting that the end is here, preparing for the next world. There are the people who want to leave the supermarket, try and chart a way forward where they can perhaps escape the mist or find out what is going on. Turns out a few miles up the road from the supermarket is an army base where they've been experimenting with this interdimensional portal, and it seems like an accident happened, and this horrible thing escaped. Ring a bell? Wink, wink. That's all we could say about that, too.
That's why it's called the Wuhan Mall.
Yeah, right, exactly. What this movie is really about, though, is despair. It is a movie about people and a society losing hope. And the really powerful thing about this film is that it is not the kind of roller coaster ride that a lot of action films or horror films are, where the heroes have setbacks and then they have gains and then they have setbacks again, and it's a struggle, and you hope that, most of the time they win in the end. Sometimes they lose, but there is a struggle. It's a back and forth. The Mist goes one way, the wrong way the whole time. It is about a group of people realizing how hopeless their situation is. And there is never a moment of reprieve. There is never a moment where you come up for air. There is never a moment of optimism. It is just a deterioration of the human spirit, and by extension, the collection of doomed souls that have to figure out a way to deal with each other in a completely hopeless world where they know that they are doomed. And I cannot spoil the ending of this movie, but the ending of this film is one of the most shocking and subversive endings of any movie ever. It goes where very, very few, won't say no other movies go, but very few movies go to the place where this movie goes. And the interesting thing about it is, as bleak and as horrific as this ending is, the final message is ultimately that when you give up hope, you ensure your own demise. And so no matter what, you have to struggle to find some thought that there could be a way forward, because when you give that up is when you guarantee defeat. You guarantee a tragic outcome. And in that sense, man, I think it's perhaps the most relevant movie on this list right now, because I can't think of a better metaphor for where we are right now. We don't have a Lula here in this country. We have Joe Biden leading a party that is going to get its ass kicked in a few weeks, and even if they don't, there's really no reason to.
I don't know. Michael Moore says they're not.
Right. Exactly.
Did he stop sending those emails? I feel like I haven't seen those emails.
Yeah, true. I haven't seen him. Maybe he cut it short. If he's smart, he would. But anyway, I adore The Mist. I love it. I've seen it probably more times than I've seen any of these movies on this list. And so I'm a big proponent of that film.
Okay, so you made your case. We went back and forth on this. I was arguing it wasn't a social, political film, but I think Keaton made his case there. He made a strong argument for it.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's of this time. I mean, when we say political, we don't necessarily mean political with a capital
No,
P.
no,
we mean
no.
socially relevant
Sure,
to the time we're
socially
in, and
relevant.
has something to say about not just the human condition, but the societal condition. And I think it does.
I think you made the case. I'm going to settle an argument here in the chat as the resident geek here. Yes, Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley wrote the first true science fiction story with Frankenstein. Previous to that, anything like that would have had elements of magic, would have had elements of fantasy. That's what distinguishes it really as the first science fiction story, because it is purely science-based. There's no wizard that animates the monster. It's all based on, theoretical science based on the intellectual currents of her time. The first real consistent sci-fi novelist, I think you would have to say, is H.G. Wells. But she wrote the first sci-fi story. So there you go. So how many times are we going to say it? Candyman. 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 Oh, one more time.
Should we stop?
One more time.
Should we stop?
One more time. Candyman.
Okay.
All right. So Candyman. That was actually based on a Clive Barker story, which makes sense. It really, once you hear it, you don't necessarily think about that, but once you hear it's Clive Barker, it makes sense. It's kind of has his stamp on it, his fascination with the interdimensional, with very extreme physical torture as a transformative experience, possibly leading to an apotheosis. So you have a lot of Barker elements in there. In terms of the politics, you've got a lot going on with Candyman. You not only have this examination, I mean, just to get into the plot, if anyone's not familiar with it, a graduate student, Helen, is doing investigations in the infamous Cabrini Green projects in Chicago about an urban legend of the Candyman, who, if you said his name in the mirror 5 times, would kill you, and claims that people had been murdered in the projects by the Candyman. And she's investigating how the bleak conditions of Cabrini Green have led to this urban legend. Now, I was actually living in Chicago at the time that they finally demolished Cabrini Green. Cabrini Green was amazing, and it was a really interesting example of failed social experiments of the 50s and 60s. It was designed very much according to the dictates of Bauhaus architecture. And the theory that had been current when they built it was that if you put projects in the middle of middle-class neighborhoods, it would eliminate the kind of economic segregation that you usually see in examples of, say, these people live on the wrong side of the tracks. But what the result of that was, I've never seen anything like this, and I'm pretty well traveled around the United States. Cabrini Green did sit in the middle of a pretty middle-class neighborhood. It was right off Old Town in Chicago, which was not a bad area. It was like there was a psychological moat around Cabrini Green. It sat there right in the middle of Old Town, but nobody crossed the street. I've never seen anything like this. So you had these horrible projects. Nobody from the projects crossed over to Old Town, and no one from Old Town. It was just, it might have well as literally been behind a moat. It was really, really strange. So it was such an infamously horrible project. Finally, they demoed the entire thing in the mid-90s. But they shot this before it was demoed, and it was horrible. It, looked like an apocalypse, basically, in Cabrini Green. So this movie has a lot going on, because you have this white female graduate student spending the movie. Basically, today we would call it appropriation, right? She's going and she's trying to use this urban legend of Black people living in the projects as her thesis. And added to that is the fact that she doesn't believe them. So you have that element of the white colonizer coming in and analyzing a culture that she's not a part of, completely misunderstanding it with absolute confidence in her point of view. And in the end, by contact with the actual Candyman, she is transformed. So there's a lot going on there. There's obviously an examination of the horrors of our racial past and slavery, and the way that that can lead to violence, the way that that can haunt future generations. The fact that it's set in Cabrini Green puts it all in a context of these people are continuing to suffer that legacy in the same way that Candyman suffered and continues to suffer from what had been done to him. You know, he was murdered for impregnating a white woman. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, right?
No.
And it was definitely one of the movies that Get Out owes its existence to, and the whole new kind of wave of Black horror. I don't think anybody working in that field wouldn't cite Candyman as an inspiration. It was really the first movie like that, because prior to that, these Black horror films had been the blaxploitation films, the Blackula, Blackenstein, things like that. You did like a serious Black horror film examining Black issues. Candyman was really the pioneer in that area.
Yeah, did you see the remake of it? I never got around to seeing it.
Okay, so I was talking to somebody about this today. It's not a remake; it's a sequel.
Oh, it's a sequel. That's right. No, you're right. You're correct.
It's not a remake. I may watch it tonight. Actually, I think it's streaming on HBO Max.
Oh, all right. There you go.
Yeah,
well, you'll have a little double feature: the host and Candyman.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, continue on, sir. You got 3 in a row here. We screwed up because we were going to do 5 and 5, but we ended up 6-4 in your favor. But that's okay. That's fine. You can keep the $3 that we've raised, and I'll keep 2. We raised $5, so you can keep 60%.
All right,
fucking dollars.
All right, come on, man. If we raise $40 in the next 20 minutes, we're going to shift over to top 10 porn movies of all time.
Right, with links.
You cheap fucks.
All right.
I'm queuing up. Okay, so this was an audible that you pulled at the last minute, where you swapped out one.
I decided to swap it. Okay, so originally I had Night of the Living Dead on the list, and everybody has Night of the Living Dead because it was the progenitor of the entire genre. But really, if you want to talk about what the greatest of these zombie movies, particularly the George Romero zombie movies of all time, were, it's not Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, no,
it's
this is a
actually
stronger film. There's no question this is a stronger movie. Yeah.
And it also, as with all of Romero's horror films, has strong political connotations. Now I'm going to give you a fun bit of trivia here. So the reason, until Night of the Living Dead, zombies were treated according to Haitian voodoo concept of zombies. So you have movies like White Zombie, right, with Bela Lugosi, where you raise the dead and he's your servant and can't break your will, and the zombie has to do what you tell them to do. Now, George Romero was inspired by a movie that used to also scare the crap out of me when I was a kid, starring Vincent Price, called The Last Man on Earth. The Last Man on Earth was inspired by the same short story by Richard Matheson, I Am Legend, that the Will Smith film was based on. So The Last Man on Earth has Vincent Price trapped in a house with these vampires coming to torment him night after night, trying to get in. So you can see immediately where the zombie genre took the isolated house fending off the hordes trying to get in from. That was where Romero got that from. Also, the idea that zombieism is a bite, that's a vampire thing, right? It spreads through biting. That's not a zombie thing. So basically took elements from the vampire legends and from that particular film to create this new kind of conception of a zombie. The reason everybody is able to play in that sandbox is because George Romero and Joe Russo, his writing partner, fucked up their copyright paperwork. There's no copyright on Night of the Living Dead. That's why everybody from The Walking Dead to all the zombie video games, they were all able to steal the idea.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah. He had a sense of humor about it later in life. He was like, you know how much money I would have made
Right.
if we had signed those forms properly. So it's one of those things. You're that old, you just have to live with it, right? So Dawn of the Dead was the sequel, which came way later. It was about 10 years after. I think Night of the Living Dead 68.
It was.
Dawn of the Dead comes out in 1978, 10 years later. And mostly people focus on its commentary on consumerism because they shut themselves up in the shopping mall and all the zombies desperately want to get back into this mall. And there's actually a line at one point that they must have some memory of the places that meant the most to them. So right there, it's this statement on American consumerism. Where do they go with what is left of their personality? They don't go to their homes. They don't go to their schools. They don't go to their churches. They're all trying to get into this mall. So there's that. There are other elements. The beginning of the movie is a fascinating portrait of the breakdown of society, of the whole process where they're still trying to hold the line against the zombies and they're losing. And you have this whole scene of a racist cop, getting off on killing people in the projects based on the premise that they may be a zombie or they may not. He just goes nuts and starts basically killing people, which is very resonant today if you go back and you watch that. And there's also an element of class uprising. There's a great line from a priest in that same sequence. He's in the housing project. He says to the military, right now, you are stronger than them, but I think soon they be stronger than you. So there's that element there early on in the film. And Romero plays on that more later on in the franchise with Land of the Dead, where he clearly uses the zombies as an underclass that eventually assaults this last bastion of civilization that's been set up along lines of wealth, power, and oligarchy. So he kind of starts to set that up in Dawn of the Dead as well. It is just a great movie with a lot of layers. Makeup done by the great Tom Savini, the legendary Tom Savini. Nobody had ever really seen makeup effects like this before. Pulling guts out of people's stomachs, very realistic images like that. Nobody had ever really seen anything like that before.
Did he do The Thing also?
Yes, he. No, that's not George Romero. I'm sorry, that's John.
No, not George Romero, but the Tom.
Savini, no, that is, I believe that's Rob Bottin.
Okay.
Wow, am I a geek?
Savini.
Wow, am I a geek? I can't believe I remember.
That's pretty
that.
impressive that you said that.
Well, one of my best friends is a professional makeup artist. So.
Oh, there you go.
But yeah, I am that much of a geek. So Dawn of the Dead, in my opinion, is the greatest zombie movie ever made. The greatest. If you've never seen it, you owe it to yourself. It still holds up today.
Oh yeah, no, it's quite good. Night of the Living Dead, you had, taken as a Vietnam commentary, just the carnage itself and sort of the black and white sort of newsreel type footage. And the other thing that was just subversive about that movie is it actually premiered a month before the MPAA rating system was actually formalized. And so kids were allowed in the theater for Night of the Living Dead. And it was this traumatizing thing. Roger Ebert said, how could you allow children to come in and watch this movie? Because just, movies just didn't go there at that time. And that came out the same year as one of the other movies. It's further up on our list. We have one more to get to between them.
Is that because Gene is falling in love with me? Is that because I like I stood up for Mary Shelley.
Is that because he stood up for Mary Shelley, or is it his taste in movies, or is it his new face?
I think I think this is working for me.
All right, we have a super chat.
You think I can tour guide with this?
Tomorrow you could.
No,
I don't know
sure.
about.
No.
I don't know about Tuesday, but tomorrow you could.
I don't have a gig tomorrow, and today I did a gospel tour. They would not have appreciated that.
Well, no.
At the Salem Baptist Church of Harlem.
No. Sean, who is a patron and a super chat donor, thank you so much, sir. Says, what about Shaun of the Dead? What's your opinion? All right, now you're going to be mad at me for saying this, but I've never seen that one.
Oh, you suck. Yeah. Shaun of the Dead is a great horror comedy, but it's not a social commentary film. It's, so no.
Okay.
Because of my beautiful mind. Well, thank you. I'm glad somebody appreciates it.
Yeah, there you go. Gaining a
You
following.
can get past the zombie face. All right, cool. All right. I think, give me your number. I don't know.
Russell's
okay.
actually met a couple of our listeners. Russell's actually, because he lives
Oh,
in
yeah.
New York
They booked
City,
me for a tour.
A couple listeners booked him for a tour and at a screenwriting workshop that you do, right? Or a sci-fi writing workshop.
I have the teacher of the class actually is a fan of the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first time I ever got that weird like celebrity reaction.
Right. Are you?
It was very strange.
Russell?
It was very weird.
Are you the Russell?
It was like, oh, Russell,
Yeah,
I watch your show. I was like, what? It's very interesting. All right. So, well, thank you, Gene. I need all the love I could get. My cat passed away, so you're all I got.
All right, let's move on, shall we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Hang on. Is it? Oh, it's still me.
Still you, because we put three in a row. We didn't order it.
I was throwing to you. All right.
Well, Russell ranked these. I left it up to Russell to rank these films. So we both kind of curated a list, and we had a couple that we were, we argued over. Although there was a lot of overlap. When Russell texted me his, there was a lot of overlap. But I fought for a couple, and Russell fought for a couple, and then he ranked them. So number 3.
Okay, so number 3. Hey, you folks, you can say if you disagree with my running order. Number 3. All right, I'll be honest. I was on the fence about this, not because of the quality of the film. There's no question. This is one of the great paranoia films of all time, you could say, and we're about to have another one in number 2. But Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of, is it horror or is it sci-fi? Because it is an alien invasion. I would argue that the way that it's filmed, the way that it's done in this very film noir style, I would argue it's more in a horror aesthetic than a sci-fi aesthetic, even though the plot may be sci-fi based. So for those of you who don't know, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is about a fictional town in California, Santa Mira, where people are showing up with a psychological syndrome, which is actually a real psychological syndrome where people believe that their friends and their relatives have been replaced by imposters. So, of course, this doctor doesn't believe it. He just thinks it's some kind of mass hysteria until he and friends of his and his girlfriend discover one of them being regenerated by a plant in the basement. So apparently it's that the plant gets put next to you while you're sleeping. It creates a perfect duplicate of you. You're killed. And then this replacement you goes and lives your life. It has all of your memories, but it doesn't have any emotions. So this is where we get the term pod people from, if anybody doesn't know, because the duplicate people come out of the pods. So this film has been a lightning rod for debate about its meaning almost since it was released. So because it's 1956, some people read it as an allegory for communism, that it was the fear of what communism does to people, making them all uniform and robotic and lacking in emotion. Others say because at the same time, you had the McCarthy hearings going on. So some believe that it's actually a statement on McCarthyism. Still others, and this is where I land, and this is how I interpreted it when I first saw it, and I haven't been given any reason to change my mind. I always felt it was a statement on the Eisenhower era and the conformity of the suburbs. And I actually, knowing more about that period, I'm more convinced of that, because today a lot of what we take for granted was new. Mass culture was new. Suburbs were new. Fast food was new. All of the consumer culture was new. All of these things were new. It's very interesting to me. I think it's From Here to Eternity. There's a speech that an officer gives to Frank Sinatra's characters, your classic rebel in these military movies. There might have been a time in this country where a man could go his own way, but those times are past. You see, these are the times now, and a man's got to fit in. So there, you see there that there's a consciousness that things are changing, that individualism is no longer going to be valued, that we're creating a mass culture. There's this birth of mass culture in the 50s. I always read Invasion of the Body Snatchers as a statement on that and a reaction against it. That's how I always took that movie. Which doesn't preclude the other interpretations. It could be all of them.
Right.
I mean, a lot of people say about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, well, no matter what, it's a movie that was capturing the timbre of the times. It was capturing the unease and the paranoia and the fear of the anxieties of Americans at that time. It was capturing the American unconscious at that moment.
Yeah. No, I think that is well said, and I'm glad we ended up putting that on the list, because I always interpreted it as a sort of Cold War anti-communist film. But you make a good case that it's actually a bit broader than that, right? And makes a certain psychological statement that is then by extension a political or social commentary. So That's well said. All right. Getting to be almost 9 o'clock, doing a long show here. I heard Lula made a speech. That's great. We'll have to watch that this evening as well. But let's continue on here. Okay, so now we are in the top 2. And our number 2 film.
Let me just say, I don't want to step on you, but yes, that is a rare case where a remake of a classic film was fucking great. The 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake with Donald Sutherland and Leonard Nimoy. That was good. It was very good.
And now that you mention that, because there's a movie I almost lobbied to have on here, but it's another Cronenberg movie, and that would be The Fly. And it's just not quite political enough, right? People try to make it like it's a commentary on absolute power and man playing God. And I've even heard a more interesting metaphor that I've heard is that it was a metaphor for the AIDS crisis, because it came out in the middle of the 80s, and it is about.
Yeah, but Cronenberg himself said it was about aging.
Yeah, so that's why I couldn't quite shoehorn that. Couldn't quite force that in. It just would have been too much of a stretch. But I did love that movie. And that is, of course, a remake. It's almost not even fair to call it a remake, because it's just so different in tone.
So Jason, are you basically saying? Jason here says, I think a lot of people would like if you continue reviewing in this political context. You mean we should bring back what was it called, Keaton?
The Dissident Film Club. Should we do that?
Should we do that? You can tell us in the comments if you think we should.
Tell us in the comments if you
make
want
this a regular feature.
Yeah, we could do it as like a sub show.
Within the
regular show.
Sure.
Yeah, a sister show.
I can do apocalyptic sci-fi all day and all night. I could fill a year of content with that.
Oh yeah, we would love to do that. Absolutely. All right, number 2, I believe we mentioned it a little bit earlier, is Rosemary's Baby. Now, this came out in 1968. Rosemary's Baby, of course, particularly relevant now. There have actually been a slew of articles written in light of the Dobbs ruling about the sort of renewed relevance of Rosemary's Baby, because Rosemary's Baby actually took place in a pre-Roe versus Wade world. This came out in 1968. And this is, of course, about a woman who is impregnated with the spawn of the devil. Now, the really interesting thing about Rosemary's Baby as an abortion commentary, right, is that the pregnancy in this movie is a product of rape, but it's also, and this is a thing that you have to kind of stick with me here for a few seconds, because this is going to sound like a line that I should get canceled for. It's not really unplanned either. So the way Mia Farrow's character gets pregnant in this movie is the night that she gets pregnant, she is planning to conceive a child with her husband.
Right.
But what happens is she eats this piece of like chocolate mousse that she got from the neighbors, and it puts her to sleep. And then she has these sort of hallucinations of being raped by the devil. And she regains consciousness, and she is pregnant, and she actually considers aborting the baby. Her friends actually say you should abort the baby, and the husband is very controlling of her, and the husband controls the whole pregnancy, basically, and banishes those friends.
And also, I'm just going to interject, like the husband is like 10 years older.
Yeah,
maybe a
so
little
there's
more.
that.
So there's that element of
an element of that
power
too.
imbalance in the relationship.
Exactly. Right, exactly. And so it really is, it really is a comment on patriarchy in a world without real feminist power yet, or institutionalized feminist power yet. And the thing about Rosemary's Baby that I was a little hesitant to place it this high on the list. If I ranked these, I would have ranked Videodrome a little bit higher, just because I feel like that's more scarring, right? I mean, that's more unshakable than most of these.
I told you my consideration was also partly as a work of cinema.
No, I know, I understand, right? But the thing about Rosemary's Baby, and I mentioned this to Russell, and Russell told me that I was not alone in my interpretation of it this way. Rosemary's Baby plays, especially in the third act, to me like a very, very dark, albeit, comedy. It really plays like a dark comedy in the end. The last scene, after the baby is born, and the secret society is sort of revealed in all of its form. And these guys just come over to this huge black bassinet or whatever the hell it is, and they start noodling the baby. I mean, it's funny, and I find it impossible that Roman Polanski didn't know it was funny. It's like, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that was unintentionally funny. Like, it seemed like it was tongue-in-cheek. I don't really know why they chose that, but it's impossible not to watch that last scene and not laugh. And so the movie is it's odd to me. First of all, I've never been a Mia Farrow fan. I've never thought she was a particularly good actress. I've never found her compelling, even in the Woody Allen movies. Obviously, they had a big falling out, to say the least. But I never found her compelling. In those movies. I don't like those mid-80s.
Those guys are not doing a Liz Taylor, Richard Burton thing anytime soon.
No, not at all. I never liked those mid-80s Woody Allen drama comedies. Something about her was just always off-putting. And so there's certain parts about this movie that I just can't get into. So like I said, I wouldn't have ranked it number 2, but it is effective for what it is. And I think it's a darkly comic film. I mean, I really do. And by the way, the New Yorker in me appreciates it because it is one of the only insights you will ever have into perhaps the most exclusive apartment building in all of New York City. I was going to
mention that.
Which is the... Something just fell off the wall here.
Somebody doesn't want you to say what building it is.
Well, you shouldn't have said Candyman 5 times. I don't know what you were thinking. But it took place inside the Dakota building, which is where John Lennon lived. And that is perhaps the most exclusive apartment building in New York City. You can't find footage. There's no video of it. There's no pictures that you could find listed.
Yeah, that's where John Lennon was shot. Outside.
He was shot outside of that building.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
and
where he
so
lived. Yo still lives there with Sean.
Yeah, and it's a creepy looking place, right? I mean, it's an eerie setting, and it's this world within a world, it's this very insulated sort of environment within a liberal mecca of New York City. There's this satanic cult in this exclusive building that no one else has access to. So it's effective in that way.
Well, and you also have somebody who was really great at just being who she was in any role you put her in, Ruth Gordon. Ruth Gordon is one of my favorite actresses from that period. She could be the grandmother that you always wanted, or as in this case, she could be the creepiest fucking person you could imagine. She's an interesting case where, like, she didn't get famous until she was an old lady, but she was around. Like, you can watch movies from the 30s where you're like, holy shit, is that Ruth Gordon?
Right,
She's like there as an ingenue in the background. She was never really pretty enough to be an ingenue. They always cast her as like the wife when she was young.
Right.
Yeah, Harold and Maude, somebody mentioned. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. So yes, so it was set at the Dakota. Another fun fact about this is Frank Sinatra left Mia Farrow over this movie.
That's right.
The guy who produced it was the legendary Hollywood producer Bob Evans, a guy who would be canceled 10 times before breakfast if he were around today. And there's a great documentary. What is it? The Kid Stays in the Picture, about about Bob Evans, where he tells the story about how he got Mia not to walk off Rosemary's Baby. And she was going to walk off because Frank's threatening to leave her because he wants her for his movie. So Frank Sinatra being kind of an asshole. You could be in my movie or you could be in that movie, but you're in that movie. We're through. So she's crying to Bob Evans. So Bob Evans, and The Kid Stays in the Picture, his voiceover is hilarious. He goes, so Hollywood of that era. Yeah, I understand actresses. I knew what to say to her, especially to her. I took her into the screening room. I showed her the day's rushes. I said, Mia, look at that. You're going to win an Academy Award.
Right. She
stayed in the picture. Her and Frank got divorced. So little Rosemary's Baby trivia there. Ironically, of course, horrifically, and a lot of unscrupulous yellow journalists made the connection at the time. He makes this movie about the devil, and then his pregnant wife is horribly killed by the Manson family the following year. This is Roman Polanski who directed it.
Right. Yeah. The one other point that I was on that I got sidetracked from is when I said that, this is what makes this resonant in terms of its sort of abortion politics is the fact that this was a planned pregnancy gone awry, which is different from the way a lot of people think of this issue. People think of, abortion as being something that exists for accidental pregnancies and this sort of like stigmatization of the irresponsible woman who goes out for a good time and gets pregnant, right? But not that there's anything wrong with that either, but that's not what this is, right? This is a woman planning to start a family with the husband. They were planning to conceive a child on the night that this happened to her. And the fact that the second it does, she loses all sort of autonomy in this obviously larger than life, fantastical setting. I can see how people are sort of revisiting this now. Because there are very few movies like this. I mean, that's one thing you would have to say about Rosemary's Baby and sort of Polanski in general. Like, there are not many directors like him. His movies do not remind you of other movies. They are their own thing.
Yeah. Too bad he was a rapist.
Yeah. All right.
That's how I'm going to button all these segments. I'm just going to say that. Too bad he was a rapist.
So unfortunate. All right, this last one we could take. This is our number one pick. A lot of people probably saw this coming. A few people mentioned this movie on the chat, and it's not just because this is a recent pick. I really do. I mean, I am in agreement that this really does belong at number 1, and that is Jordan Peele's Get Out. What I'll say about this quickly, because it's the number 1 pick, so I don't want to hog this as mine to monologue about. I've said this on the show many times about this movie. This movie is so good, it has come up in conversation many, many times on our show. The brilliance of Get Out is that it sets itself up. It is designed to trick a shit-lib audience into thinking it's on their side.
Right.
And then a half an hour in, it totally flips the script on them. And I experienced this in the theater because, look, I'm a nonconformist.
They went with the trope of the redneck cop, which is such a trope of these movies.
Well, they went with the trope of everything, not just the redneck cop, but the white savior girlfriend, right? The woke white girlfriend who's bringing her black boyfriend home to meet her white family. So the whole setup of this movie is that this white girl is dating a black guy, and they're going off to meet the family, and some sort of shenanigans are going to ensue, but we assume the whole time that the girlfriend is on his side. We never assume that the girlfriend is in on it. We know something bad's going to happen because it's a horror film, right?
Right.
And we know based on the press going in that there are racial themes involved, and so we kind of get that something's going to happen. But we never suspect that the girlfriend is part of it. We never suspect that the whole thing was a ruse from second one. And so there's a scene when they're on their way out to the parents' house where the cops, or I think they hit a deer. It's not that the cops pull them over, right? It's that they hit a deer runs out in front of the road. They have some confrontation with a white cop. And the cop asks for her boyfriend's ID. And she stands up for him. You don't have to give him your ID. And we think, oh, here we go. Here's the white savior girlfriend sticking up for her black boyfriend against the white racist cop. And I, at that point, was getting frustrated with the movie because I thought, okay, this is exactly the kind of stupid, woke, virtue signaling bullshit that I thought it was going to be, and no wonder all the libs love it, no wonder everybody loves it because, I was living in New York City at the time. Yeah, of course, okay, fine. I roll. And then there's this fantastic moment about 45 minutes in, and this is really the moment where it is so powerful when he discovers the boyfriend character, Daniel Kaluuya, when he discovers the picture in his girlfriend's room of her with another black guy, that sets up in your mind, okay, now all bets are off. But the brilliance of that moment is that you still don't know exactly where the story is going at that point.
Right.
You just know that you've been had. You know that you've been had because the entire conceit of the film is that it's going to be a black guy and a white girl against the horrible boomers, right?
Right.
And then when you see that picture, oh, wait, that's not what this is. There's something mysterious and sinister about this girlfriend, but you still don't know what it is. And then the second half of the movie is just this like surreal, brutal, just trip that it takes you on. And then the real brilliance of the movie is at the very end, and we can spoil it here because I'm assuming everybody's seen this by now. When he's about to get away and he has his girlfriend pinned on the floor and he's about to get away and we see the police car pull up. And we think, and the movie has it both ways at this point. It has it both ways because it gives you in your mind the very stinging but very appropriate ending of a white cop coming out and shooting him. Like that really, if it were really trying to make a statement, that would have been the ending.
Right.
And it gives you that image of that because the moment plays for about 30 seconds where we see the siren and we see him and we see the cop and we know that's what's going to happen. But then it gives you the fun Hollywood comedic payoff of his black friend getting out of the police car and saving his ass. And so it has it both ways with you.
Right.
But the movie is just brilliant. It's brilliant from beginning to end.
With that movie, I think the audience would never have forgiven them for pulling a Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, right.
Where he survives and then gets killed by white rednecks. They never would have forgiven it.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. There was an alternate ending though, and the irony is in the alternate
Oh yeah,
ending,
I didn't know that.
there's an alternate ending where and this is what's weird about it, because in the alternate ending, he gets arrested and gets taken into jail, which is kind of a weird sort of half-assed. I mean, if you're going to end it that
it's
way,
neither.
right?
It's
If
neither
you're going to
fish
go
nor
really
fowl.
dark, you may as well have him get shot, right? That would be the really dark ending. But yeah, you're right. I mean, for the movie, it was, they probably just couldn't go there. But the interesting thing about it going there is that it would have sort of come full circle and given even like mainstream liberals a theme they can latch on to in the end. Whereas this is just a complete rejection of all that virtue signaling. And, the guy comes, oh, yeah, I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could. Right.
Well, I think part of the brilliance of this movie is more than any other movie I've ever seen. It gave you some sense, and you can never really know, but I felt like Jordan Peele really wanted to communicate how scary it is to be black. And I felt that more than I've ever. I think there have been other films that may have tried to convey that. I never got it like this movie got it across. That the paranoia of always feeling like, hang on, what? Hang on, what's going on? What do people have bad intentions towards me? What do they really think of me? Who am I to these people? Like, it really put you in that headspace. And that's quite an accomplishment. As I said, I've never seen another movie that did that quite as effectively as Get Out did.
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole sunken place metaphor where Catherine.
That's become part of the language. That's kind of become the anti-woke, like the opposite of being woke. You're in the sunken
but you know
place.
what? I'll admit to this. And this is perhaps by design. Maybe his whole point would be, as a white person, you're not supposed to know what the hell that means. I don't know what the hell that means. Like, I still don't get the metaphor there. Do you? I mean, I'm asking because I still don't get it. It's eerie, it's effective, it's evocative, but I still don't exactly know what he was trying to communicate with that.
Well, I think your true, authentic self has been buried under an acculturation. That's how I would interpret it.
Okay. All right. That works. All right. So that's our show, I think. I think that's everything, right?
Yeah, that's our show. Everybody, be safe. Enjoy your Halloween. It is my favorite holiday since childhood.
As you can tell.
I used to go out as a boy. I literally custom made my own Bela Lugosi outfit. I had my own cape that the Greek woman who sewed upstairs made for me, which starts the collar. I had the medallion, the whole thing. I'd go out with a suit, trick-or-treating. I've always been a big fan of it. So those of you who have kids, enjoy. Those of you who don't, enjoy more.
Yeah. Patreon.com/do dissidents help make our Halloween a happy one. Signing up. We had somebody sign up over the course of this broadcast. His name is Carlos. So, Carlos, thank you for watching, and you were inspired.
Last chance to super chat.
Last chance for a super chat. Our tip.
Well, Jason said the sunken place is a message to black folks. Really, they're the only ones I've heard use it as slang. I haven't heard white people use it as slang, but the sense that I've gotten from the way I've heard it used is it's the opposite of woke. I've heard Kanye described as being in the sunken place.
Yeah, I've heard black people talk about the sunken place too, and they just mention it. It's a part of the what do they call it? The lexicon now. Is that what you would call that? Yeah, yes. Exactly.
But I don't think generally just among black people. I haven't heard white people use it.
Yeah, no, never.
I mean, we shouldn't even use it because black people, justly so, they're very upset about how woke has been appropriated.
Right.
You know, it meant black revolutionary consciousness. Now it usually means a white asshole.
Right. It means an annoying white asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like the way they stole progressive from us.
Exactly. They stole progressive from us in the same way. All right, everybody. Well, this was a fun show. This was a great Halloween episode. Like I said, if you are going out trick-or-treating tomorrow, have fun. If you're going out partying tomorrow, have fun, have a few drinks, but don't get too hammered. Be safe out there, everybody.
There goes our run for the Senate.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll explain that joke next week. Have a great night. Be safe. Be well. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Please clap.